Want to help me make this a happier and healthier world? Like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to work with me, go find me at ryanspence.biz. Well, and so kind of going into like our next topic, you kind of segued into that perfectly because I was gonna ask you about like, well, what was kind of the transition period? So you were doing commentary for or shoutcasting for Clash Royale, and then that
Yep.
was kind of dying down. And you're like, well, sounds like I want to go find a new game. So you went to
Yep.
Hearthstone, and that's about the time when I met you. And how long
hmm
ago was that? Maybe like 2 years ago, you think?
Yeah, probably 2 years ago.
Okay.
Because I remember us being at TwitchCon Long Beach, which was
Yep.
2018.
Yep. 2018 TwitchCon.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And I know
And
you were
that was
still
right
doing
when,
Hearthstone.
yeah, that was right when I was seeing if that's what I wanted to do. But actually, before that, I tried to do Dead by Daylight full time as well. And that's such a
Yeah.
great community. There's so many people that play that game every day. I think I realized it's something I don't want to play every every day, or it's hard, like those games that are repetitive. And Clash Royale was that way, where
Hmm.
you're doing the same match and it's different, but it is like on rinse and repeat of like the same match over and over again,
Yeah.
essentially.
Sure.
Those are hard.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. Well, and especially, I'm still a little bit in the Hearthstone community and connected with
Yeah.
that. I mean, I think, as this is just kind of a segue side opinion on Hearthstone, but it does have a lot of uniqueness to it. But there
Mhm.
is only so many. Like you get to a point where you're still playing like the same matchup, the same game quite often,
Mhm.
especially in the tournaments. So you're like, okay, well,
Yeah.
you can almost calculate. Okay, well, if they draw this, then they're probably going to win, or they're going
Right.
to do this. So it
Like I know
does.
what deck this is. There's these certain cards and stuff.
Yeah, it kind of takes the fun out of it, and then it's
Yeah.
seeing the same thing over and over again. So I didn't know you did. It said it was Dead by Daylight, so I didn't know about
Mhm.
that. Right, that's cool. So,
I honestly, when I did Clash Royale, I would always do Clash Royale for a few hours and then do my like last hour or two with Dead by Daylight. I will say variety is really hard when
yeah,
you're starting out because you're essentially kind of building multiple communities at once. And I like, I learned that the hard way. And it is like we were just talking about, it's really hard sometimes to stick to the same game every single day, especially the ones where
yeah,
you're doing some kind of match because it can be so repetitive. And especially if you're on tilt and you're losing and you're
yeah.
like, you feel that. You're like, oh man. That's one thing I think why I like Sea of Thieves because there's just so many different ways to play that game. You can just kind of be casual, do your own thing, be chill, do like the story quest. You can go PvP with people and be aggressive, or you can do the competitive mode arena. And I think that's better suited for me, at least for right now.
Yeah, so there's enough variety of ways to play it for you
Yeah.
to where you, and you've been, how long have you been playing that? It's been at least a year, right?
Oh yeah, I think it's been. I'm trying to think when I switched to Sea of Thieves. I think it's been about almost coming up on 2 years that I started doing Sea of Thieves full time. A little
Okay.
under 2 years.
Okay. Because I think at TwitchCon 2018, you had like some partnership, or is that where you maybe you did some shoutcasting for them? I think you were doing some sort of event with them at TwitchCon 2019, weren't you?
Yeah. So I actually before prior to TwitchCon, I went to a convention called Guardian Con, and I competed in their Battle for Orlando, which is a tournament for their arena mode, which is kind of like a battle royale, but it's it's 5 teams against each other, but it's not last ship standing. It's who has the most points at the end, and it's developed since then. But out of 80 teams, my team ended up actually getting top five, and so we did really. And that's honestly how I got to know the developers of the game because to them I was still a new streamer to see these. I didn't know who I was at that time, but they did after that tournament. Man, I that's one thing. Like I'm sure we'll get to it about like how to grow your stream a little bit more. But I feel like getting involved is so important. Like,
Yeah.
and that was like going there and you just get that face to face with the developers. And I got the opportunity to meet them and then got to be on their, they do a weekly dev stream where they'll kind of talk about new things in the game. And they do little giveaways and they'll usually bring on a streamer to sail with them. And so as soon as I got home from that, they invited me to do it, which I was so grateful and so excited for because that was something that you feel like goals. And then you
Yeah.
have the opportunity. So that was really cool. And then from there, yeah, I got to meet with them at TwitchCon. They invited me to be on the Sea of Thieves panel at TwitchCon, which was another goal of mine. I'd always wanted to be on a panel. So I got to check that box last year
Yeah.
with them, which was very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, I remember seeing you there, like you're getting like all ready for this event. I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. So
Yeah.
super, yeah, super proud for you for that. And like it's like, so I mean, it sounds like one of the things you've done the best is just finding your own opportunities. It's not like, they've just been handed to you. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
this is what I like to do. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to network. I'm going to meet people organically and truly just kind of get to know people. And then people just see your professionalism, and then they say, oh, well, she definitely should have this opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you really just never know what can happen. For example, at that tournament, I was competing, but they were going to have people shoutcasting because this was a live tournament set up on stage, and they had the PCs set up on stage, and it was one of the main events of the convention. But they ended up having the people that were going to shoutcast it. They were, I guess, not super familiar with Sea of Thieves and that competitive mode, so they were looking at other streamers that were there and they could shoutcast. And there's another streamer, B More, uh, it was there, and he was not playing. He did not compete, and but he was just there, and so they were like, "Can you? Do you think you can shoutcast it?" And it's something he hadn't done before, and he did, and he absolutely nailed it. He did a great job. He was just there. I feel like he same thing. Like he made the opportunity for himself, and it was kind of on the fly, unexpected. But it's just like boom, something like that can happen, and you never know.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very inspiring because I think with anybody like myself that I haven't taken the steps to really look into it enough. Well, usually I'm somebody that seizes those opportunities. I just
Yeah,
hadn't, taken the time to seize it enough. But I mean, it seems like it's very feasible and within reach. As long as
yeah,
you want it, connect with the people and make it happen. That's super cool.
yeah. And I feel like sometimes you just got to tell people, like, hey, I have this ability. I can do this if you need me to. And man, I can't tell you how many times, like, sometimes people reach out and they're like, oh, I remember you said you can cast. Can you cast this? And you're like, yeah, let's go, and it's something, it's unexpected sometimes, but just throwing it out there, just to throw it out there. And sometimes it comes back to you,
Yeah. Well, nobody knows that you can do it until you tell them. So,
right?
yeah, that's great. So you're kind of going into one of our other really good topics that we are talking about. So well, first of all, loved hearing everything about all your success with broadcasting, how you got to this point, because I did not know that full story. Like I said, I
Yeah.
hadn't had a chance to really get to know you as much as I do now over the last
Yeah.
couple of years. But so now one of the things that has been really challenging for anybody that's been streaming on Twitch for probably any period of time is the dreaded switching games. And
Yeah.
so you mentioned you streamed Clash Royale, you then did Dead by Daylight for a period of time. After Clash Royale was like, okay, well I want to find something new to cast. You went to Hearthstone, you tried it out.
Mhm.
You weren't you probably played it seemed like you played Hearthstone for a while. Do you know how
Yeah.
long you played
I think it was
that?
about 7 months.
7 months, okay.
Yeah.
So you played that, and then you just felt, well, maybe that's not necessarily for me. And especially, with how the casting's done, it's a very cerebral game where there's not a lot of animatedness to it, and not as much
Yeah.
action. It's just like, okay, play. I'm gonna play Yogg. Okay, I win. But
Yeah.
so then you made the decision to go to Sea of Thieves. What made it? What helped you go to Sea of Thieves, especially if you didn't think there was going to be broadcasting opportunities? What drew you to that?
I think it was just a long process of trial and error. I eventually, man, I played Sea of Thieves when it came out in beta, and what drew me to that game was honestly the graphics. They're so pretty. The water in
Yeah.
that game is just beautiful, and they did an incredible job with it. But in the beginning of that game, for anybody who's played, everybody unanimously, it seems like, knows that like there wasn't much to do, like most games. So it's a fair statement, I feel. But you would kind of go dig up treasure and turn it in, and that's kind of it. And then they would add something new. I'd come back and play it a little bit, and then kind of move back to my other games. And then they had started adding a lot more content that it kind of drew me in a little bit more. It was way more in depth than it had been since I had last played it. And I felt like, you know what? I think this is something I would want to give a go for, to try and do it full time. And the competitive mode wasn't even existing in the game yet. It was just the adventure mode. And I think I was just kind of okay of taking that time to put the casting on the back burner since there was no opportunity in that Sea of Thieves to grow my channel. Because like we talked about switching games, which I'm happy to talk about more. It was a struggle
Yeah.
to like it was a big struggle and I felt like I gotta find something that I like but is also successful for me. And that was Sea of Thieves and ended up being.
Yeah, so it was really more of like just the gameplay, and the and
Yeah.
honestly, like I haven't played Sea of Thieves, but every time I pop in your stream and I see you play it, I kind of want to play it, but it's just so hard for me to like want to pick up a new game. But
I
it
know.
does
I'm
look
the
very
same.
join. Yeah, it does look very. I did pick up Hades though. I highly recommend Hades.
Okay.
It's a lot of
I saw
fun, but
people playing that.
yeah, that's what happened for me too. I've been hooked on Hades the last 8 or 9 days. I played that straight, but Sea of Thieves looks really fun too, and I can totally
Yeah.
see how like you see those graphics. I'm like, oh, it looks pretty cool, and it seems like it. I don't know. It's kind of a good balance of hey, it seems like a good in-depth fun game, but it also has. It doesn't seem like it takes itself too seriously, like Call of Duty or something like that.
Right.
It has the fun
Yeah.
graphics. Yeah, yeah, that's super cool. So yeah, tell us some more about those struggles of trying to switch games.
Yeah.
You're going to Sea of Thieves, and what's your viewership like? What's that like?
So right now it's like higher than it's ever been. And I think a big part of that is because I have been consistently doing Sea of Thieves every single day for the past few years now. And I've gotten, like I said, super lucky that I got the opportunity to meet the developers at these conventions and become friends with them. And they were getting ready to kick off this Sea of Thieves partner program. So I got in at the start when they were creating that. So was one of the first to be part of that. And part of that eventually turned into Twitch drops, which are huge for your channel for anybody's. And it definitely will, for the day, I mean, your viewership is like 10 times what you would normally get because people show up for free items, of course, but
Sure.
it also like in the long run increases. It just is so much more discoverability for your channel. So it's amazing. But to start from the beginning for it, when I did Clash Royale was a brand new game back when I started March 2016. It had just come out, and so that's what I started my streaming career with. And like I said before, there was unfortunately for Clash Royale, like there weren't that many other ladies that were streaming it.
Yeah.
There was me and there were two other ladies that stick out in my mind immediately that were playing it. But otherwise, like I mean, it was just kind of like I was unique in that sense, and I stood out because of it. And so I think it really helped me kind of kick off my career and definitely these tournaments. And I got the opportunity to host these amazing tournaments. It brought a lot of people to my channel. So I think I kind of took off quick because of that. And I applied to get Twitch part back in the day. In 2016, there was no such thing as affiliate on Twitch. You were either a streamer or you were a partnered streamer, and there was no in between for that. And so once I started getting good numbers at the start, I was like, oh, maybe I can apply for this. I applied several times and got denied. And I think now maybe you have a button to apply. Wasn't like that before. You just
Yeah.
went and applied. So they would say like, oh, come back in 3 months and apply again. And
Yeah.
after like a week, I would just apply again. and I eventually got it though. And I think it's like it was just like hitting that spot. If I was playing a new game, it was also a mobile game, and I think this is the start of mobile games on Twitch, and they were trying to make it a little bit bigger with, gosh, I can't remember the mobile game that used to do tournaments. But there was like Arena of Valor, and I tried all these mobile games as well, and would throw them in there and play. But so I think I really got lucky and hit that sweet spot. If I was in the right place at the right time, doing the right game to get partnered, and so I did pretty early, and so I do feel like I had pretty early success because I grinded and put myself out there and just push, and I got involved, did their esports. I traveled with them. I got this. My top amazing opportunities were with them. I actually lived in LA for like a few months at a time because we were filming a weekly live show tournament out there at a studio in Burbank. And so I basically lived in Burbank for 2 months
That's
and
sweet.
would come back. I'm East Coast, so I'd come back and forth. I'd be out there for 3 weeks and then come back for like a few days and then go back out there for 3 weeks and come back. So, which was hard, and it's kind of lonely sometimes living out of a hotel and everyone else in the studio when you're chilling and I streamed when I was out there, but they're all working in the studio as like their actual full-time jobs there, but it was such a great time. And then I got to do they did these whole world championships for that series, so I got to go to London, and that was this huge production, definitely my top moment I think in all of my career in entertainment. That was like the best for me.
Nice.
And I loved it. And then summer 2017 kind of hit, and that's when Fortnite came out. And then
Ah,
Fortnite, I mean, Clash Royale was a lot. It's a free to play mobile game. So who plays that? Kids.
yeah.
And so a lot of the young kids were playing that. And then who plays Fortnite? Kids. So a lot of them they dropped Clash Royale and moved to Fortnite. And I think I probably would have done well had I moved to Fortnite, but it just like wasn't my style of game.
Yeah.
I tried it. I wasn't into it. And so it really started to die down. Clash Royale started to die down on Twitch. It definitely still does well on YouTube. Pro players still
Hmm.
pull in great numbers on Twitch for it. But for me, I started noticing, okay, like for longevity of my streaming, I'm gonna need to make a switch here.
Yeah.
And like I said, I would stream Dead by Daylight after Clash Royale on most days just for something different. But man, those are just two completely different
Yeah.
games. They're
Yeah.
just so like polar opposites. I mean, it's a horror game on PC versus like a fun game that's family friendly
Hmm.
on mobile.
Yeah.
So it was two completely different markets. And then I tried to do Dead by Daylight full time, man, and I had great concurrent viewership with Clash Royale, and I was getting up to 200 plus concurrent viewers of Clash Royale. And then when I switched to Dead by Daylight, man, I could not get over 100
Yeah.
concurrent viewers. And so here, and it's really disheartening because here you are like me with, you know, 5-digit follower numbers pulling in less than 100 viewers. And,
Yeah.
it just feels like you feel like it weighed on me. I feel like, God, it's like my numbers seem so mismatched.
Yeah.
You feel like you have to tell everybody like, oh, I switched games the other way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's really hard, and it's really hard to go from like that success and those big moments and then and I made that switch, and it's definitely my own doing, but I to realize that like I have to start from the ground up. Like the viewers that were watching me for Clash Royale are not like some people carried over with me, and there's still people that have supported me from day one
Hmm.
um in my stream, and I appreciate them. They've come to my stream no matter what I play. But a lot of people like they just once I wasn't doing Clash Royale anymore, they're not showing up anymore.
Yeah.
And so after I realized, like, okay, Dead by Daylight's not taking off for me, I need to try something else. And I tried Hearthstone, I had played Hearthstone way before I even started streaming, actually. And so I was like, okay, this is a game I know. It's not like learning from a brand new game, basically. And I got involved with it. Obviously, I met you and Slissa and so many other wonderful streamers who welcomed me into the community with open arms, and I'm super grateful for them. But I don't know. There was just something about it, and I did that for, like I said, 7 months, and same thing. I just couldn't get over like 50 concurrent viewers, which
Yeah.
I know is a lot for some people, but for somebody, it's relative to you,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Exactly.
relative to your channel. And for me, and going from what I had in Clash Royale to like dropping by a third, it was really hard, and mentally for me I felt like I this isn't for me, maybe I
Yeah.
shouldn't do this. And then I eventually switched to Sea of Thieves, and it was still hard. Like I still had to push for a long time, and like I said, like getting involved in these tournaments. And then I started did the did the tournament at Guardian Con, and then I would do these other tournaments that other streamers were putting on in the game as well. And I just tried to participate in as many different things as I could to get my name out there. And eventually it did. But man, it was a long road to get here.
Yeah. Well, and it's beautiful to hear. I mean, it obviously was really, a big struggle, but I mean, that's the thing
Yeah.
I think we all struggle with is it's hard not to feel some nervousness about your numbers. I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, you had five figure numbers with Clash Royale. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Or
like follower numbers.
forward. Okay, yeah. But I
Yeah.
mean, going from there and then going down and then going down
Yeah.
even more with Hearthstone and then, but yeah, that's just. I mean, it always eats away at our psyche, and then you
Yeah.
probably like most of us, you're like, oh, am I a good streamer anymore, or
Right.
like or what am I doing wrong, and so it's really interesting to hear that you had to deal with that as well, because obviously that's a huge challenge that many of us face. So
I
it's
know.
so it sounds like for you though, what was really important was making sure that you play a game that you really enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think it's important for longevity of your career as a streamer because you really, I mean, you're a sign. It's like it's no different than working a job is something that you're like. I understand work is work for sure, and I get
Hmm.
that. But I mean, you want to at least have some interest
Yeah.
and fun times, something that pulls you to that. So to have to get on every day and play over and over a game that you're not super into, I feel like it's just like hard. And some people can do it, you know? And I don't know, for me, I'm like I have to enjoy this, I think, because I think that your vibes and how you feel and how much you're enjoying it, that comes through in your performance when you're live. People see that.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that. I was thinking, I was just going to ask you the same thing. I mean, it seems like people can see when you're not enjoying the game. You can tell
Hmm.
when people are being, no, I would say necessarily disingenuous, or but
Right.
like, but you can tell when it's something that they're not really enjoying, and then that's going to rub off on the people that are in chat too. Because one thing that's really great about coming to your stream is you're always having a good time. You're very social. You're really good at reading chat, and you're always having a good time. Or I mean, at the very least, you have a smile on your face. Like
Yeah.
it's very rare that you're just like, well, I shouldn't say rare because I've never seen it happen, but I don't ever see you like just with a, frowny face or an upset face on your stream.
Yeah.
So,
And I think it's hard too, like playing for me, going from a game, any game that has any kind of ranking system, uh, people can like Hearthstone, people can
yeah,
immediately see how good you are
yep,
because there's a ranking system. It's the same thing with Clash Royale. There were trophies in Clash Royale. And that's people that are new to your channel. How many trophies do you have?
right, yeah,
Or what level are you? And Hearthstone, what ranking are you? And so to go from a game that is so like heavy in that to a game where I mean, there's levels in Sea of Thieves, but it's just like once you've done a task, then you don't get any stronger when you level up and you can just do it kind of at your own pace. It's not a ranking system that
hmm,
resets or anything like that. So it's just so much more laid back, less
yep.
pressure, at least for me. And like some people love that competitive side and they strive on that. And I'm definitely a competitive person, but I do notice that I think I'm happier without it for now.
Yeah. Well, that you make a great point because I didn't think about that, but that is something that's huge, at least in the Hearthstone community.
Hmm.
Is there is that pressure? Like we were talking, my very first guest was D Money Games, and
Hmm.
he's trying to entertain and have high ranking.
Yeah.
And usually, the people that do really well at such a cerebral game are people that aren't either streaming or they're not entertaining while they're streaming
Right.
necessarily or even trying to educate. They're really focused on I must play perfectly because our
Right.
brains can only do so much. Like you can only
Yeah.
play something really perfectly and something's going to give, whether that's entertaining value or reading
Yeah.
chat and all that stuff. So
I agree.
I'm really glad you bring that up because that is something that eats a lot of people up in the Hearthstone community for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's actually interesting too because I haven't known enough about Sea of Thieves, but yeah, I mean, so it's more laid back. So what is your community like within Sea of Thieves?
I love the Sea of Thieves community. I swear, and again, like going from like we talked about with Clash Royale, it's definitely a younger crowd. Not everybody, but most
Hmm.
people, it just is. I mean, because all like teens, they all have a cell phone nowadays, and a game that they can be competitive in and also play for free, like that's right up their alley. And just sometimes there's when there's lack of maturity, sometimes it's just
Hmm.
you deal with so much more negative things and people
Yep.
backseating you or people I mean, we've all dealt with people like that. I don't need
Oh
to
yeah.
explain, I think, to anybody on Twitch what that comes across as. But the Sea of Thieves community is just so much more mature and
Yep.
so much more welcoming. And I think it's also because it's a game that you can play with your friends.
Hmm.
It's not an individual game like Hearthstone or like Clash Royale. Like you can get a boat with 4 people on it and you can easily play with other streamers or with viewers or meet people in the game.
Hmm.
And so for me, and you go to a Sea of Thieves stream, I guarantee when you're in that community, you're gonna know like at least five
Hmm.
people in there. You'll be
Yeah,
like, oh hey, and it's
that's
just a
great.
big network and everybody kind of watches everybody, I feel like. And sure people have their favorites, like I certainly do. of who are my go-to, but you always recognize people, and people are just so chill, and so I really love that community a lot.
Yeah, that's great. It's always also good to hear more mature too. So,
Yeah.
because believe it or not, not everybody on the internet is so mature, especially when it comes to dealing with streamers. So,
Yeah.
if that's one takeaway from this, if you did not already know that, the internet maybe has a few trolls on it, but
Yeah.
uh,
Just
just a few, right? Well, yeah, that's really cool. So, I mean, it sounds like it's more of a kind of social type game, right? So it's
oh,
like
for sure.
yeah. So like you were saying, you made a really good point that we're very, as humans, we're really tied to numbers. So like when you go to a YouTube channel, subconsciously we always like, well, how many subscribers do they have, or how many,
Hmm.
or how are they doing? Are they partnered? Or hey, how many viewers does this Twitch person have? Or any something, or how are you ranked? What's your rank? So it feels like it's some sort of competitive nature in our head that it's like, well, we have to watch the person that has the most viewers or the most
Right.
highest rank sometimes. So then that's putting more pressure on the streamer, whereas you don't have that with Sea of Thieves. It's more of like what you want, where you want to connect with people. You're very social, and you want to enjoy the game that you're playing, and kind of be in this big happy family.
Yeah. And I will say there is like a small amount of it because there's not a ranking system. There is,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, there's levels. And so you still get the people that come in and, oh, what are your levels? What are your reputations? And, oh, like, and once you hit like level 50 and three categories and you become pirate legend, the people always come in and, oh, are you pirate legend?
Yeah.
But it's not really competitive. I mean, I don't know. It's more
Yeah.
just like your experience in the game versus like your competitive ranking number.
Mm-hmm. So how long do you think it? So from starting with Sea of Thieves, and you're still kind of the lower viewership number. It sounded like, and it sounded like it took you going to being into the game and meeting devs and such in the community. How long do you feel like uh, it took before you felt like more comfortable with your viewership with Sea of Thieves?
Hmm. I think I think after doing it probably maybe about 6 months. And
Okay.
that was like I think what really took off for me was going to that Guardian Con convention, which was so funny because it was something that I was like, I don't know, like I don't know if I want because it's down in Florida. And I'm like, gosh, I don't know if I want to travel down to Florida. There was so much going on. But there's just honestly another streamer, Burger Warrior 24, who
Mm-hmm.
I'm super close with and my husband's super close with. And he's the one that pushed us to go. He
Mm-hmm.
really is. And so that's why we went. And I'm just really grateful that because I wouldn't be where I am without him pushing me to go. But I think that definitely is what took off for me because again, like I got to meet the devs and I was also competing, so that got my name out there as somebody who can compete and can hold myself as a competitor in that game. And also, yeah, meeting the developers and then having that network, man, it helps so much when you are in with the game company. And not all game companies are there. Some are just like not about streaming and not about their
Mm-hmm.
streamers, and that's fine. But man, the ones like Sea of Thieves, they just show so much love to their
Yeah.
streamers. And they do, I feel so much for us and so much to try to pump us up. And, we try to do the same for them. And so I'm just really grateful. And Supercell was the same way with Clash
Mm-hmm.
Royale. And even Hearthstone, like they were super welcoming to me. The community manager was when I started playing that. And same with
Mm-hmm.
Dead by Daylight. Those are also wonderful people
Mm-hmm.
that made me feel that way. And I feel like that's so important. And you guys, and I feel like you can grow together if you work together. You really can. And if you can get to know those people and they support you and you can support them back, and it definitely makes you feel like you want to support them back and
Yeah.
you want to promote their game. You want to play their game because you feel like they have your back.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be super awesome. I mean, I remember you mentioning that just a couple weeks ago on stream, like talking about how supportive those companies have been. And
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people think to reach out to those people, in
Yeah.
the companies. I'm generally somebody that's pretty good at networking. It just comes natural to me. Like I love learning from
Yeah.
people and connecting with them. Just organically and legitimately, not necessarily just for myself, but just to learn from
Right.
them and learn something, like say, hey, if I did want to broadcast or if I did want to partner with you guys on that, what would that take? Not in
Right.
like an evasive way of like, okay,
Right.
well, this is what I want. Can you give this to me? It's more of like getting
I
to know somebody.
know.
Yeah.
And that's so hard, man. It's so hard to do sometimes. And I'm super shy, honestly. Sometimes to ask that. I got super lucky because one of my moderators is very good at Sea of Thieves. He and I were two of the teammates that competed at that battle for Orlando. And then we're sitting there talking to the devs. And he spoke up and he was like, so what would it take to get somebody on the dev stream? Like obviously hinting at me because he streams now, but he didn't then. And they were like, "Oh, maybe you could be on this week." And I was like, "Oh my god," But I don't know if I would have asked. I think because it is you never want to come off that way of like, "Oh,
Sure.
hey, like, can I be on your stream?" But I'm so grateful that he asked for me because I don't know. I think I would have been shy to ask.
That's funny.
So I feel you on that. It's
Yeah.
hard. Like it's hard to finesse it, but I do think like you mentioned it, like building a genuine connection, human to human, like ignore like game aside, Twitch aside, that will come naturally when you do that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's one of my biggest takeaways from this conversation is just like making those genuine connections, and
Yeah.
like that's why I get to have like somebody as awesome as you on here too. Like I was so excited for all the success that you've had, everything that you have going on, that you're willing to come on the show because we've just built a genuine connection over the
Yeah.
years, which I really appreciate.
Yeah. Likewise for me. And I feel like I feel like you're somebody who makes, like, you're so good at like keeping up with things.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm working on. Sometimes you get overwhelmed with things, but I'm
Sure.
trying not to.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, I'm also sometimes, and this is just my personality. I study this thing called human design. It's super fascinating, and I'm going to totally message you about it after
Okay.
the stream. But it's like I found like my type was called like what's called a manifester, and I kind of have this tendency to like be very talkative and sometimes feel a little bit overbearing to people. Like I have a very strong personality. Either people like me or they're really repelled by me. So so I'm very unique in that
Yeah.
situation where like a lot of times I will ask, but sometimes I will not think like, oh wait, maybe they thought that was a little crass or maybe that was a little too forward to ask. So sometimes I'm on the other end of like, hey, you know what? Maybe this is going to come off the wrong way. I'm surprised to hear you're shy though. That's kind of surprising to me.
Yeah.
You
Like
seem
I
very
don't know.
yeah.
Like I feel like I don't know. Like I feel like I'm one of those extroverts, introverts. I feel like that's me. Like in a group setting or conversational, definitely like I feel like I can hold my own. But man, like for example, somebody tweeted this out one day and I'm like, oh my God, I'm glad it's not just me. That they were like, I feel so shy to ask other streamers to play with me. And I feel like that's me, man. I'm so shy to ask people to play unless I'm really good friends with them, which is and it's something that I know and I feel like I have to work on. But I think I'm just so like paralyzed by the fact that I don't want them to think that I'm, trying to. I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like trying
Right.
to use them,
Right. Okay.
but I would never, I'm like just genuinely want to play with somebody, but I guess I'm like, or afraid that they will say no or things like that. So I'm super shy sometimes to ask people that or to
Okay.
ask people for things like that way.
Interesting. Well, that's actually perfect because that was going to be one of the things was going to ask you, for like maybe the coaching portion is like, what is something that you would like to either do differently or what challenge you have? So, like, it sounds like for you is maybe being a little bit less shy to go ask the question to somebody about
Yeah.
an opportunity.
I think I'm afraid of like being told no for things
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. So when you think if somebody were to say no, what do you think you would feel?
I think I would start feeling like, okay, well, why do like they not want to play with me because of this or because of that? Or I think I would start to read into it as to are they saying no?
So it'd be maybe less on feeling rejected, but maybe a little bit more about, well, why don't they want to play? What are they thinking about me? It
Yeah,
almost
and
gets
the
like,
rejection as well.
okay. So you
As
think you,
well, yeah, definitely like that feel like, oh, it feels bad, like they don't want to play.
yeah. I know that feeling. Yeah. Uh, Rejection is always a really challenging thing that I've had to like deal with myself. Like where we have, there, and I think so many people on Twitch can probably relate to this. But when you ask somebody, like especially guys, like ask. I mean, it's different, but like asking a girl on a date or whatever, and they say no,
Hmm.
or asking if like a lot of times I'll try to organize bike rides or whatever with my friends, and they either won't text me back or they'll say no,
Yeah.
and try not to like take that personally. So that's been a huge
Right.
journey for me myself. That's something I've had to learn about. So it sounds like
See,
a little.
that's
Yeah, go
That's
ahead.
definitely me. Like even like outside, I think sometimes like I'm not so much of the planner with friends.
Hmm.
Where my husband Josh, he is like I feel like he doesn't care. Like he's so not that way. Like he will just ask people,
Hmm.
and like I guess if he's not afraid of that, or he's not afraid of people say no, then I think he's more so like, okay, whatever, and moves on. Where I'm like, oh my gosh, why? And it's
Hmm.
something I honestly realized, I think recently. I listened to a podcast about it, about like it was about like self-sabotaging.
Hmm.
And I'm like, man, I do this with that. Like I'm just so afraid of people to say no. So it's so interesting that you and I are talking about that because it's something that I have recently noticed that
Hmm.
I do and that I want to work on.
Yeah. So, what are some examples of maybe that you would feel comfortable sharing about self sabotaging specifically?
Okay. Um, so maybe like organizing an event sometimes where you have like an event or you want to, let's say hypothetically, I wanted to put on a tournament and I wanted to have other streamers involved, and maybe I would put off asking people because I'm afraid that they would say no, they don't want to participate in this tournament that I'm putting on.
Hmm.
And then by me putting it off and I ask them last minute, then it's almost like a self sabotage of
Yeah.
I'm going to put it to the last minute. So that way, maybe like if they say no, it's because it was late notice
Yeah.
versus them not wanting to be part of it. And I feel like that's self sabotage
Yeah.
because you could definitely give them notice, but then you have that risk of maybe they'll say no and facing that.
Yeah, and that creates like what we call the self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you maybe in the back of your head, you're like, "Oh, I don't think they'll say yes." They'll say no, and then it happens. And when that
Yeah.
happens, it probably reinforces it even more. Like, see,
Right.
they weren't interested, and then that's
Yeah.
going to continue to build up on you. Like the next time, you might even wait even longer. You might not even ask the question next time potentially. Yeah, so
Yeah.
interesting. So let me take a step back here. So when you're going through that and you're one to ask to set up an event and then you put it
Hmm.
off, why do you think they might say no?
Hmm. Maybe if it's they don't want to put in the time commitment um or I don't know. I feel like sometimes if you don't have that like strong rapport with people, then maybe they're kind of like, I don't know.
Hmm.
Especially people who are, I feel like if they are a larger streamer or YouTuber, they're typically busier, and it's typically harder to get them to commit to events like these because they have so much going on. That perhaps if it's just too much for them to take on, and so they will say no, or
Hmm.
definitely. And well, kind of like what you mentioned, not necessarily in that same thought, but it comes to mind of like people that just don't ever get back to you,
Yeah.
which happens sometimes as well. And you're like, oh, it feels bad for that,
Yeah.
because you sit there wondering, like, did they see it and they forgot, or did they see it and they're like, oh, nah, I'm just gonna blow this off, or did they not see it at all?
Yep. I've had a few of those actually during this interview process too with this show. Even have a couple of the situations I've had to like challenge that and say, okay, take a step back and try not to take it personally.
Yeah.
So some of those situations are great ones. I can relate to those as well. Now, let's say somebody you you ask them, like 3 weeks ahead of time or whatever is kind of a good amount of time that you would normally ask them, and they say no. Now, in your head, like, are you thinking that's a reflection on you if they say no?
Yeah, I think so. Depending on, of course, like who it is and what the event is, but yeah,
Hmm. So,
I feel like I would think that, and I would
so
start to wonder, like, what about it? Like, what about me? Do they not want to like do this? You know?
Yeah. Well, do you have like what are some of those things that you think they would think about you?
Um, I mean, my mind goes like so deep into things, like where like I honestly feel like sometimes people, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I think like maybe sometimes like as a female asking a male, then and sometimes they will think like, oh man, like I don't know, like I don't want them to or people to think that we're like have something going on, or
Hmm.
that or if they have like significant others sometimes and they're like, oh, like because I don't know, I feel like you deal with that stuff sometimes, like even on Instagram, just like commenting on some like a male's thing, like it's something that's so just like oh, like one time I comment on somebody's dog picture
Hmm.
because it was some kind of dog Instagram, and then some I got a response from a girl like, "Oh yeah, my boyfriend is like super funny," and I'm like, "Whoa, girl, whoa!" Like I am married, like I'm just looking at the dog, you know. So I think that's in my mind sometimes
Yeah.
as well, and I don't know if that's like true or not, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be tough. I mean, it sounds like there's, I mean, you gave a great example there of an experience that
Hmm.
is in your head. You're like, well, so now you're probably thinking, well, if I ask this guy to do a co-op, well, hey, are they going to think we're a thing, or does he have a relationship that you know I'm that it appears I'm butting into, or any kind of like little
Hmm.
drama like that. So those are some things that are going through your head.
Yeah, because I think, like you said, because I have dealt with that, and where you
Yeah.
know, or it's like then a girl needs like the girlfriend or wife or whatever feels like they need to insert themselves, and I feel like, well, like I'm just trying to like collaborate on a professional level.
Yeah.
Like there's in no way, shape, or form like any kind of feelings or anything like that, and like I feel like my actions are professional as well because that's extremely important to me.
Hmm.
And so you kind of like you're like, oh, it feels bad, like because that's kind of hindering a good networking opportunity potentially.
So let's go back to that scenario where the girl comments on, what you said and kind of like puts a stiff arm out there. So after that, I assume, did you say anything? Did you comment anything back to her?
No, I'm
Yeah.
so like no drama. Like
Yeah.
I'm like I got it. Like message received. Like okay,
Yeah.
you know. And I mean, and that wasn't something anything stream related. It was just some like husky account that I like
Hmm.
Husky the dogs that I followed on Instagram. But I mean, it definitely deterred me from ever commenting again for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely understandable. Um, is there just you don't have to name any names, but is there uh, like a co-op or a collaboration opportunity that you have in your mind that you are wanting to ask about currently?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, okay.
several.
Okay. So you got several, and are you feeling some of that same nervousness with those?
Absolutely. I mean, there's people that like I've like never asked just because not necessarily because I feel like of that scenario of like
Hmm.
I don't know, like sometimes yeah, like I think he sometimes if you're the smaller streamer, it's kind of
Hmm.
nerve-wracking to ask a larger streamer
Hmm.
to collaborate because you don't want to come off as trying to leech their viewers or anything like that when you
Right.
know you're truly coming from a place where like you just want to play with them because you respect them as a player and as a content creator.
Yeah. So when you reach out to these people, or when you have in the past, how do you usually do that? Is it like through a Discord message or?
Yeah, always like always in a direct message. Never, I never want to put people on the spot, you know,
Yeah.
unless they do it first.
Hmm.
Like if, for example, I'm chatting in somebody's stream and they're like, "Hey, we got to play together," I'll be like, "Yeah, absolutely." And but other than that, I would never want to put somebody on the spot and ask them. I always like DM to ask.
Yeah. So as far as so if you were to ask somebody like one of your opportunities, is there any way that you think you can ask, but in a way that you feel is safe for you and for the other person? So, for example, asking in a way where you feel like, hey, if I ask this, I can feel comfortable that they're not going to interpret this in the way that it's not going to be.
I think the way for me to do that would probably be to asking. to collaborate with me and somebody else, or me and two other people as well.
Okay. So you think there has to be, so you think if you were to do it just with one person, it would feel like you might think that they would think that you're trying to get something out of them or reach viewers
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. So you feel like if there was two other people, like two other bigger
Yeah.
streamers or like a smaller and a bigger, or does it
Yeah.
matter?
I think, yeah, maybe, or somebody like a similar, maybe smaller or similar level, or similar level to the larger streamer.
Okay.
Just having, yeah, like a more, less of like a duo collaboration and more of like a group collaboration. Maybe I think that would be like a, hey, do you want to play with us versus
Mm.
do you want to play with me?